Hey, what's up, fantasy football fans? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk, and we're going to get straight into the Week 10 waiver pickups. As I said the last couple of weeks, once you get into Week 10, it becomes increasingly thin out there on the waiver wire. Less to pick from, less to even scout to see what's going to be worth it. But what happens is several players come off they start to show up that you had thought was going to be good in the beginning of the season, like pretty much the number one pickup for this week, which is Mike Evans. Most of us drafted him in every league. Generally, he was about 90+% on, but he come down to where he's at now, 32%, because of the lack of his usage in Tampa Bay's offense. They were going a lot to Vincent Jackson, thinking he was going to break loose, but more than anything, Tampa Bay's offense has just been bad, so they hadn't really known how to use him. But he's been one of the truly consistent pieces of the Tampa Bay offense because he's gotten at least 50 yards in each game he's played since week 2. In this past week, he went 7 for 124 for 2 touchdowns. When you get at least a certain number of yards, especially in a rookie year with the rookie wall being really high with wide receivers, it says something. And this past weekend was a nice little breakout game. So much so that just proves he's ascending while Vincent Jackson is really declining. And if you say you have Vincent Jackson in the league and you want to pick up Mike Evans and got the opportunity to do it, I have no problem with dropping Vincent Jackson for Evans' upside and his big playability, and for the fact they're going to try to figure out how good they have with him going forward the rest of this lost season there. So he's definitely one you want to target this week. Same as the second guy, Martavis Bryant, 22% owned. Mind you, his ownership is in many ways, not his ownership, but the ownership is a product of that, but his production, rather, the last few weeks is a product of these highly unlikely Ben Roethlisberger last 2 weeks with 6 touchdowns in both games. I mean, when that happens, somebody's got to catch him. It can't all be Antonio Brown. Martavis Bryant caught 2 touchdowns this past week, and in the last 3 weeks, he's had 5 touchdowns. But what he is showing that is not a fluke is that he's easily becoming Ben's go-to red zone target behind Brown, and definitely his past Wheaton for the second most targeted guy. So Martavis Bryant, if Ben's going to keep up any semblance of this offense that he's been doing, this offensive production rather that he's been doing over the past few weeks, even if it got from 6 to 3, Martavis Bryant is going to be valuable because he's going to be the beneficiary of a lot of anything that Brown can't do. So you definitely want to own him too. He should be heavily owned after this week. Number 3, Odell Beckham. The reason he's number 3 and not number 1 is because he's already 56% owned, but I don't know why he isn't 100% on right now. His explosiveness, his great hands, his playmaking ability makes him more than across the board ownership he should be at this point. And I'm absolutely shocked for the most part that he isn't. With 27 targets, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. I mean, we don't really even need to discuss him. A lot of people were thinking Ruben Randall will be the number 1 now. That's settled. Odell Beckham is the number 1 target with Victor Cruz out. Go get him. He's out there, and now what is that looking like? More than 40% of leagues. He needs to be grabbed, and he's out like in a couple of mine. If I have the ability to get him, I'm going to want him over several guys that I have on my teams now. So go get him. Make sure he's on this week across the board. Number 4, Carson Palmer. Short of that magnificent 7 or whatever of quarterbacks this year, Palmer's been most dependable surprise quarterback this season. But his biggest surprise is he only has 2 interceptions. He's known for being a risky, take chance type of quarterback who just throws down the field thinking he can fit it in a real tight spot or a tight window and gets picked off a lot. But 2 interceptions across the board this year, although he hadn't played in every game, that's pretty good for him. and he shouldn't be on any waivers at this point. This is that point in the season where injuries are starting to pile up, and if you're in playoff contention, you need the best chances to win that you can have. And everyone at this point needs to have a backup quarterback, the way I see it, unless you really got somebody with a good offensive line, and that still doesn't make it definite across the board. So Carson Palmer, if he's out there, and you have a backup, your backup probably isn't as good as him. So think to add him if he's out there on your waivers, and I'm not sure his ownership. I didn't write it down. I didn't type it in, but it's nowhere near what it should be. He needs to be owned. Speaking of quarterbacks, Mark Sanchez is number 5. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would even say this man's name again, nor ever would have thought to have him on this list. But he made some dynamic plays this past weekend. This is an amazing thing about him. He leaves the Jets, and people think he's washed up, become a career service backup as he gets to the Eagles. But it's possible. All we talking about, butt fumble, this, all this, that. He might have had the last laugh. His bad play got him off a real bad situation and puts him into a good one. He's failed forward. Now he's in a high-power offense that's more talented and better than any he had while at the Jets. And he was able to assimilate well into the Chip Kelly offense and ran it kind of fine this weekend. Though he had 2 interceptions along with his 2 TDs, he seemed to be comfortable in it, and he provided a defined spark that Foles can't do. Because like I've said before, Foles isn't the real deal. What he reminds me of, Foles reminds me of, you remember Kevin Kolb? I'm not saying he isn't better than Kolb, but there was a time where a couple of games made Kevin Kolb be one of the higher picks in a few years back in drafting, and then he got washed out with Philly, then went to the Cardinals, and now he's gone. Nick Foles had a couple games, and they anointed him after moving Mike Vick out. I'm not saying that he's Kevin Kolb, but still, Foles isn't the real deal. And maybe this is a chance for Mark Sanchez to shine a little bit. I'm not saying this is going to last forever, but it's probably going to last the rest of the season because Foles is going to be out for a while. So if you need a quarterback, this will be a good one to add. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% promising, but there's a lot of quarterbacks out there on the waiver that he is going to be much better than as you scour the wire. So pick him up. Number 6, Ryan Matthews, 49% owned. Chargers on a bye week this week, and this will be a good time to pick him up while others aren't thinking of doing it. And the good news is Donald Brown came back, did nothing. Didn't think he was going to do anything anyway. And unfortunately for a lot of us who invested into it, this whole Oliver thing is kind of proven to be a little bit of a wash, not so good. Underperformed 3 straight weeks. So the door is wide open. The question was, what will Ryan Matthews' role be when he returns with Brandon Oliver at the helm? His at the helm is at best questionable because he hasn't done anything with it. So talent is talent is talent. And Ryan Matthews has much more than either Brown or Oliver. So get him. He's got another week off so he can heal some more. And maybe he'll play in week 11. Who knows? But now's the time to grab him because he might be a good stash for the playoffs. Number 7, Terrence West, 31% owned. This one I'm not very happy with the endorsement because the Browns are now becoming the Bills, are now becoming the Rams. And running situation, this committee base that doesn't have any clear definition of who's going to be it. The question at first was who was going to be the best one to spell Ben Tate while he's away. That was looking like Kroll. Now that Ben Tate's back, it looks like Tate and Kroll still aren't doing anything. So that leaves the door open for Terrence West. And he had only 15 carries for 48 last week, but he caught a touchdown. Again, I'm not really impressed with it, but it looks like Terrence West isn't complete cut bait like he was a few weeks ago. And he's looking like possibly the more trustworthy back that they want to incorporate more, into the run game. So if you're desperate at running back, which we all are, Terrence West will be a decent ad over, say, I'll tell you what, I would rather have West, I think, over any Rams running back now, even Trey Mason. He's kind of like a tie with where I would have Anthony Dixon at this point, maybe. Maybe. I'm not sure. But either way, West will be a speculative ad to see what he does going on. Same with the next two. Number 8 is 2, just like they were last week, Bobby Rainey and Chris Sims. Right now, Rainey's on the top of the depth chart. And to me, Rainey, every time he performs, even in that bad game on Thursday, though he was fumbling, he's good with the ball when he has it, when he's not causing those type of problems. He's been running great from last year even to now, every time he features now. But something, it seems like Lovey's regime doesn't like him, so they kind of phasing him out. And it looks like they're wanting Sims back so bad so they don't even have to use Rainey. But until Sims gets things going, Rainey is a good own because he makes things happen, just like he did this past weekend. As for Doug Martin, he can be 100% dropped in all leagues, 10 team, 12 team, 14, whatever. Doug Martin is nowhere needed to be owned at all. So between the two of Rainey and Chris Sims, I think I would grab Sims because it looks like they want to use him more. But if you're trying to add something for, just next week, Bobby Rainey will be the guy. Number 9, we just got word back. Adrian Peterson, he pled no contest to a misdemeanor, so he's not going to be going to jail. So what that means is he could be reinstated relatively soon back into the league. The problem is, let's say Roger Goodell reinstates him as soon as Friday. Does that mean that the Vikings will keep him and activate him, or will they release him? Because the stink of this situation hasn't really gone away, but what is good, it's been several weeks that's passed, and memories are short when it comes to things like that, and production is big, and he will supplant any McKinnon or any Matt Asiata who had that crazy week if he gets back into the Vikings' good graces. And I really think Vikings management still like him as a person, and they definitely know the type of back he is. They're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. So I don't think Adrian Peterson is going to play this week, but I don't see him not playing. When it comes for playoff time, he becomes a Josh Gordon type situation where he will be valuable come fantasy playoffs. And he's only 28.5% on right now. In most leagues, he is out there. So you've got somebody on your team that you can cut bait, which you don't really trust, to add arguably the best running back in the game as a stash in case he plays. So I really think Adrian Peterson, everywhere I can get him, I'm going to pull him just to hold and see. And it'll be just that. I have no more insider information or any sort. But if he has a chance to play, you want him. Which turns into the number 10, who's been the number 10 the last 3 weeks, Josh Gordon. His ownership is finally going up to something higher than where it's been, but it's still only at 42%. He is still more owned, he's still nearly 60% unowned. 3 weeks away, y'all. 3 weeks away from what's a number 1 receiver and was the best wide receiver last year in fantasy is able to play. 3 weeks away. Should definitely be the last time I mention him on this list. He needs to exceed 70% ownership, 60% ownership, because that's my threshold of discussion is 60%. He needs to pass that. Stop playing, y'all. If you're 5-4 or better, you need to have Josh Gordon. And that's it. So anyway, that's the list for this week. Same as always. Anytime you got any questions, follow me on Twitter at FFRealTalk and hit me with any start sit questions, any trade questions, any lineup setting questions, anything you have, I'm more than willing to answer any questions you have. Or if you have questions you want to put in the comments here, feel free to do so. But again, Twitter's the best place to reach me. That's again at FF Real Talk. And continue to subscribe to the channel, watch the videos, and spread the word. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully you have good luck in week 10, because we're getting close to wrapping this up. And again, if you need anything, just hit me up. All right, y'all have a good one.